Welcome to session 2. In session 2, we are going to start working with program loops. Again, if you have already programmed it before, this is going to feel like review, and that's okay. I need to make sure that everybody who takes this course understands the concept of loops, so let's get started. In JavaScript, we use 3 different types of program loops. Our first loop is what we call a for loop. This is generally a set number of iterations. An iteration is each time you go through. And then there can be a series of code inside our for loop, a set of commands that are going to be called as many times as this program loop needs to occur. In the example here, we always have a starting condition. We usually use variable I for iteration because that's the amount of times we're going to iterate. How you want to compare to find out if you want to continue. In this case, we're going to say like I is less than or equal to 4. We want this to go through 4 times. You might go until the array is ended. So until the length of the array. And then finally, update that variable. We're going to update the variable with either a plus plus or a minus minus or some sort of alteration to that variable to change it over time. The second kind of loop is a while loop, which will continue to run as many iterations as necessary until your condition is met, the continue condition. So if the continue condition is finally false, then the while loop will pop out. In this case, it's very important that you update your iterator code or your variable, your sentinel, to determine whether or not you want to change your code. So if this is while I is less than or equal to 4, we need to be incrementing I until it stops. Sometimes you can have this go into an infinite loop because we forgot to increment our iterator. The last one that we do is a do while loop. And what this one does is it's very similar to a while. It'll continue until the condition is met, but it will run the whole first time without meeting that condition. Sometimes it's important for you to have a piece of code that's run and then check the condition at the end as opposed to checking the condition at the beginning. So a while loop will check your condition at the beginning and a do while will check your condition at the end. The next function we're going to build in our code is going to be our weekday row function, which is going to be our Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday across the top. We're going to use code to build that. So I'm going to make a function called cal weekly row, and it does not need to have any parameters. Again, I'm always going to add my comment to let people know what this is for. So this is going to be my function to write a table row of weekdays. Okay, so I know what my weekdays are. I can make an array to hold my weekdays. So array of weekday abbreviation. So let's go ahead and make that array. So I'm going to call that day name, and I'm going to build my array. Really important to remember that each of those is in capitals and they're all separated by quotes. When you write this part, it should look like this with the IntelliSense, so that you know that you have opened and closed each string correctly and you've opened and closed your array correctly. By the way, you may have noticed that my function or my variable name here, day name, is in gray as opposed to being in white. That means you've created a variable that hasn't been used yet. Once it's used, it will turn to white. So when you write your code, if you end up with any variable names that are gray, you might have a spelling error somewhere, because it shouldn't have that. It should have everything in white saying that you've used it. All right, I'm going to start my row HTML with a TR, because that's how we do rows. And now I'm going to create a loop. This loop is going to walk through my array and put in each cell correctly as necessary. I'm going to use regular for loop. For loop. Remember, for loops have 3 aspects with them. What is the variable initialization? What does it start at? I'm going to start it at 0. I am going to go until I get to the length of my array. So until I is less than day name dot length. You use dot length a lot when you're walking through arrays because you want to go through the entire array incrementing by 1 each time. And then I'm going to use a regular incrementer, I++, to be able to increment that for loop. Now I'm going to change and append to my row HTML each time I go through my loop. So I'm going to add plus equals, so I'm going to append a th. It's going to have a class of calendar weekday. It's going to close its calendar weekday string, and then it's going to close its tag. So it's a th tag. Then I'm going to append or concatenate day name with the I. So whatever I is. So it's going to start at 0, and then it's going to go up to 1 and 2 and 3. So it'll start with Sunday, and it'll increment Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Finally, I'm going to end with my close table header, because you have to close your tag. Don't forget to close your tag. Don't forget your semicolon at the end. So what this for loop is going to do is it's going to walk through that weekly row, so the array of 7 names, and it's going to append a th inside of my row HTML each time. Finally, don't forget to close your tr at the end, because that's really important, because your tr is open, it's not closed. So I'm going to do a final row HTML plus equal, and I'm going to append my closing row tag. Really important to remember that. Finally, I am going to return this so I can use it in my calendar creation. So this row HTML is going to have an open tr tag and open closed tr tag, and then 7 th tags in the middle. Finally, we'll go back up to our create calendar after our caption, before our close table. And I'm going to write calendar HTML, again, append, so plus equals my cal weekly row, and it didn't need any parameters. So save and refresh. And you can see it went through 7 times and created those 7 cells for us. Again, if I come back to my dev tools, I can see my calendar, open that up, open my table, inside my body, here's my TR, and here are my 7 weekly rows with the correct CSS tag so that they all look pretty. We're now going to get started calculating how many days are in our month. So this is kind of an important thing because each month has a different number of days, and we need to know how many days we're going to need to fill in, whether there's events assigned to those names or not. So if we came back up to our top here, we would see we have a function called days in month. So we're going to be building that function now. So our function, days in month. And we're going to give it our cal date so we know what the date is. Once we know what the date is, we can figure out what days are in month. So assuming it is not a leap year, we are going to create an array of how many days are in each month. So day count is going to equal, and again, I'm going to have my open and close brackets, and we're going to start January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And those are our days of the year. We all did this in elementary school. So those are the arrays for days in each month. Don't forget your comments at the top that just say function to calculate number of days in the month. So now we know how many days are in each month. Again, it's 0 based, so January is going to be in their 0 position, so that'll work just fine. I'm then going to have a variable for this year, so I know what this year is, which is our cal date get full year, and our variable for this month, which is going to be our cal date get month. Okay. Finally, we are going to return our day count array and then the value that exists at this month. So since this month for our purposes now is August, it is going to go through and find the August entry and return 31. The cool thing with this is that when you have this for a different date, say September, it will have different values. In JavaScript, there are comparators and logical operators. So our comparators are our equal, is not equal, is greater than, or less than. These are just like mathematical. We can do an equal to test if they are equal, or we can use 3 equals to see if they have the same value and the same data type. So sometimes we like to use the 3 equals to make sure that they are not only the same value, but also the same data type. Our not equal is an exclamation mark for not and an equal sign, which just says it's not equal. And then of course, greater than or equal to, so on and so forth. We also have ands or ors and nots. So ands are 2 ampersands and ors are 2 bars, or the line, the horizontal bar that is above your enter key. Our not is just an exclamation mark, and a lot of programs or a lot of coding is going to use exclamation mark to mean not. So if you want to check if something is not less than or is not equal, you can always use the not operator. Arrays in JavaScript come with a series of methods that help you to loop through them. So we have a for each method that will allow you to run a function for each item in the array. This could be incrementing the value or adding up a sum or something like that, where we want to run a piece of code, a function inside of each item in that array. So we want to pass that value through to each one. In that case, the function needs to take a parameter, a single value parameter, to run it through the function. We can use a map. What a map does is builds a new array by applying that function and using the return value from that function. So if we have a function that gives us a return value, and I want to run through a series of numbers and return an array of the square root or the square of everything or doubled or something like that, I can use a mapping to create a new variable, a new array that has the return values of each of those options. We can filter out objects, so we can return a new array that only has the values that meet a condition. So similar to that function, something that returns either a true or a false, you can throw that in as a condition. Reduce is similar to filter, except it reduces the original array. The original array gets modified with a reduce. We also have find and find index and a couple of others that are in your book. Hopefully that gave you a little bit more information on stuff you can do with your loops in your arrays. Come back next time to finish up our calendar.